Welcome to the Jeromy+One program on threeheadedeagle.com. I am Jeromy, and I'm here today with a +1 that I'll be introducing shortly. This is, again, my solo project. I am the same Jeromy from the Three-Headed Eagle podcast, Three-Headed Eagle show, but just doing a little thing where I like to get with another individual that's doing something interesting in the community and interview them and have them tell me a little bit about it. And the topic of today's show is actually private property rights and eminent domain. This has been a big controversy, but it's been a big controversy for a really long time. And we can go all the way back to the days of John Locke and him talking about property and the state of nature. And do we really own things that we own? And basically Locke coming to the conclusion, yeah, of course we own the thing we own. The first man owned it. The minute he took it out of the state of nature, it became his, and then he had the right to sell it. In the 5,000-year leap, Cleon Skousen said that 4 rights that we need to make the free market work in America are the right to try, the right to buy, the right to sell, and the right to fail. Those work with our own private property also. When we talk about private property, we're talking about your house, your car, anything else that you own. Our founding fathers of our nation were really big on private property rights. James Otis said one of the most essential branches of English liberty is the freedom of one's house. A man's house is his castle. John Adams, the moment the idea is admitted into society that property is not as sacred as the laws of God and that there is not a force of law and public justice to protect it, anarchy and tyranny commence. And one of my favorite quotes on private property rights, and I apologize for waxing all biblical on you, but it comes from Exodus 20, "Thou shalt not steal." Tells us a little bit about how God feels about private property. Not only does it tell us, yes, you own private property, but it also tells us that you're not supposed to take it from somebody without their permission. Joining me on the show today is Jim McPhetres. Jim, you're a city councilman in the city of Mirage, right?
That's correct.
Okay, but tell us a little bit about yourself personally, where you've been, where you came from.
Well, I was born in Dayton, Ohio, and raised in New Hampshire. I joined the Air Force in 1976, and have been quite a few places around the world. I've been able to experience many different cultures, and it was a wonderful experience. I retired at Luke Air Force Base in 2012, and at that point, just prior to that, we moved to El Mirage. I got married. I got a beautiful wife, Veronica, and 2 boys that are now out of the house and have given us 4 grandkids. I got into the politics side of the house because El Mirage was a really quaint little town city at the time, and I wanted to make sure I was part of the development of that city as we grew, because when we bought our house, it was one house out in the middle of a big field.
Yeah, El Mirage really grew during the big housing boom.
It did.
And just so that everybody knows, El Mirage it's a Phoenix suburb. It's on it used to be the extreme West Valley.
Yes.
It's not the extreme West Valley anymore because there's a whole lot that's past it now. But El Mirage used to be, like you said, just this tiny little town.
Yep.
Now it's full of basically brand new houses.
Well, it is, and it really grew fast from the about 2000 to the housing crisis in 2000 with 2008. We built a lot of houses in El Mirage, and as that growth was happening, I felt it was necessary to be part of the growth part of El Mirage, where we, as a community, we work together. So I volunteered in many efforts. I was part of the volunteer police department out there. I was part of a lot of different volunteer organizations to help our community be what we want it to be, a wonderful place to live, raise our kids, and enjoy life.
Jim, I'm sorry. Did you just actually say you were organizing the community? Are you a community organizer, Jim?
Well,
okay.
yeah, you might say so, but I mean, I was also part of the Homeowners Association board, and I became president of that board for 7 years until I became a member of the council, and I stepped down from the president's position just because I didn't want that conflict of interest, but I still am a member of the board of that HOA. And I'm a member of that because I know very quickly how fast government can take advantage of the people that it's working for. And as a homeowners association, I want to make sure that we have a community that isn't one of those communities that says, we're going to just hammer you every time you do something wrong, and we're going to take your money because you violated a rule. So we've made sure that we've created a homeowners association that is reasonably run.
That is not Gestapo.
Not Gestapo. Yes, I didn't want to use the word, but it's a very appropriate word.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure that we took into everybody owns in your association. They're all property owners, so we have to respect that right, which leads into my stand of what we're getting ready to talk about.
Right.
We're property owners. We have a right to own that property. We do have to live together, so we do have a set of rules that we need to abide by. And I just wanted to make sure, as a homeowner and as a homeowner board member, that we have a reasonable enforcement of those rules.
A lot of times we forget the value of that O in HOA. Homeowner. We
Yes.
own that house. That's
Correct.
why we get a say in how this community is going to be run, because we own a little portion of that community.
Yes.
Own that little part of dirt that house is sitting on and a little piece around it. But recently, El Mirage City Council, you're a member of it's 6 people on the city council?
Correct. We have 6 council members and 1 mayor, and we're
Okay.
all equal votes.
Okay. And rest of the city council, you told me a little bit earlier, how do they describe themselves politically speaking?
Well, all but 1 describes themselves as a conservative Republican member of this council.
Okay.
We do have 1 person that does profess to be a liberal council member, and that's really wonderful. His heart's in the right place.
Yeah. Well, and you can be thinking differently does not mean you're a bad person or that you have bad intentions. It just means you think differently. And we called our website Three-Headed Eagle because after the Three-Headed Eagle and the 5,000-Year Leap by Cleon Skousen. And one of the things about that eagle was that you had to have both wings flapping equally. Otherwise, you get drug a little too close to tyranny or a little too close to anarchy. That's why they wanted all voices to be heard. So it's good that they're being heard. But what I find interesting, we're talking about a bunch of conservative Republicans, and tell the audience what recently you guys voted on.
Well, the recent big buzz now is eminent domain. And we have some road construction projects going on Thunderbird Road and El Mirage Road, and it's a great project. I won't say anything bad about it. I believe in the concept of what we're doing, but it came upon council to vote on a resolution to authorize the force of eminent domain, and it was that night that I opposed this resolution. I didn't support the use of eminent domain. I gave my reasons why eminent domain should not be used in these cases. Or any case, we own property. We have property rights. If we're going to negotiate fairly, let's negotiate fairly. Let's not hold the noose over somebody's head that says, I'm going to take your property if you aren't going to go with our offer. And I asked that night to remove the name eminent domain out of the resolution. I could fully support it at that time. And they refused to do it, and they passed the resolution anyway at a 5-1 vote because 1 council member wasn't there. And off we went.
So, okay, just so that people understand fully what we're talking about with eminent domain, the Supreme Court of the United States has okayed this in a few different cases that they say, yeah, the government has the right to take whatever they want to take as long as they justly compensate. It's like the second installment of the Atlas Shrugged movies. There's a character that says the government takes what they want and taxes what they leave behind. And it's like we've officially arrived. That's where we're at. But to give people an idea of what we're actually talking about, you're a business owner, right, Jim?
I am.
Okay,
I am.
We're actually at your business right now. It's a print shop.
Yep.
Really nice shop. You guys print everything, right?
We do.
What was tell me the slogan one more
You
time?
think it, we ink it.
Right. Okay. So you do anything. So let's say I'm Jeromy Government for a minute, okay? And I really like your business, and I think that we need it because the Federal Reserve can't print money fast enough. So I need your print shop. So I'm going to come in here. Jim, I'll give you $6 for your business. Is it a deal?
No, it wouldn't be a deal.
No. Okay. So,
Right.
but I'm the government, so it is a deal.
And that's how they're going to present it. That's how they'll enforce it too.
Right. So you got this project that you're just widening a road, right?
We're widening 2 roads.
Widening 2 roads, El
Yep.
Mirage and Thunderbird?
Correct.
Okay. And I've been through El Mirage. Jeffrey West, who I interviewed on the show last time, lives out in El Mirage, and I'm at his house quite frequently. So, I know there's traffic issues and everything. I get it, but at the same time, A lot of those pieces of property are just right-of-ways and easements and stuff like that, and probably not a huge deal, but tell us 5 of them are what?
5 of them are total allocations. So that means we're going to take the entire property. We're going to displace homes. I believe there's 1 vacant property, but 2 of them that I know for sure are houses, and there are people living in these houses. They might not be the prettiest home in the world, but it's their house, and it's where they raised their family. And we're going to take their homes on the premise of public safety, because we can't take a portion of their road, of their property, because it's not safe for them to have the entire house there. Now, I don't know what the real motive is, but I've looked at where the property is, and I don't know. I guess it's a subjective view on safety, I guess, but I know that the entire home will be taken and those families will be displaced. We're going to take care of them, though. Trust me. That's what the mayor said. Trust me. We're not going to hurt anybody. It's not our intention to hurt a soul.
Do you think it's a good idea to trust government?
It's never a good idea to trust government.
I totally agree. I think trust me coming from any government official automatically makes me go, nope.
Right.
I don't think so.
I mean, we should earn the trust, not just blanketly give it to them.
Right. And that's coming from, so the audience, remember, this is coming from a representative of the people of a small town, El Mirage, but, you're an elected official.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And you're saying, yeah, we really ought to keep an eye on government.
We have to. The checks and balances, they're there. We need to use them. And we work for the people. We don't work for our own personal use. We don't work to put a road in because we think the road looks good. We give the idea and we put the project in place, but then we need public input.
Right.
I don't think anybody in the public is going to say, yeah, let's take these homes. These five families, we're going to take care of them. I don't know how we're going to do it yet, but we'll do it. It might have to go into court, and we'll drag all this out, but we're going to take care of them. Yeah, I believe that.
Right.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So you said that there's families that their homes are going to be taken.
Yes.
Basically, they have almost no negotiation power.
Well, that isn't true. If you read how the state statute works, there's supposed to be a lot of good negotiation involved with this. But when you have the ultimate tool hanging over that homeowner's head that says, if you don't agree to what we're offering you, you can take us to court, and we'll have an arbitrator, we'll have a judge, and they'll make that decision on what's fair or not fair. But ultimately, we're going to take your property, and we're going to take it for what we feel it's worth. And that's what the city manager told me. He sent me an email, and he says, I can't believe you're willing to spend more than what we can get it for. That's the paraphrasing of his comment. I am willing to give. If the project is that important for us to do, I'm willing to provide that homeowner or that property owner fair negotiation and give that property owner what we come out with through that negotiation stage without the tool, the forceful tool that says, if you don't negotiate with us or accept our terms, we're going to take it anyway. Well, that's not fair negotiating. That's the use of a powerful tool. It's bullying in all aspects. And this society has said that they're against bullying. So how can we allow our government to bully property owners? It's ridiculous. And so if we just fairly negotiate with people, I have a feeling they're going to take the offer. I really do. And I hope every property owner does take an offer. And I hope we fairly give them what they're looking for.
Right.
And
that's what you took a stand against wasn't widening the road. It was basically telling the property owner, you better take the offer, because if you don't, we're just going to take the house anyway.
Absolutely. The project itself is a worthwhile project. It's how we're doing it. Does it make it worthwhile?
So if any other entity were to come in and say, yeah, you know what, we need that property right there. We want to put in a restaurant, whether it's McDonald's or whoever, it doesn't matter what company it is. Somebody wants to put a restaurant right where that house is, and they say, well, it's good for the city because it's going to put a nice new restaurant in this community. It's an older community. It'll raise property values, whatever their argument is. Everybody would say, you're nuts. Okay, you want to put a restaurant where my house is, we get to negotiate. You want that piece of real estate? That means my piece of real estate's worth more money.
Exactly. I think Mesa was a prime example of that. I think there was a tire store or something that was being displaced, so another newer franchise-type store could come in. And Mesa was negotiating the eminent domain use of public use of that property. I believe the property owner won that. But those are just examples of how we can abuse the use of eminent domain. Eminent domain shouldn't exist. It just shouldn't exist. I mean, we are property owners. We have rights, and most of us wouldn't be unwilling to sell. We all have a number. So let's negotiate that number.
Right.
I mean, that's what we do in the world. If we go buy a car, we negotiate a number.
Right.
We buy a house, we negotiated the number. That's what we need to do when we're a government looking to expand a project and we need to acquire property. We need to negotiate. Now, I don't know what that end number will be, but it'll be fair if we don't use the tool saying we're going to take it from you if you don't bend to our rule.
Right. And you mentioned Mesa doing it a little while ago, which is actually the city I live in, which is on the opposite side of Phoenix over in the East Valley. And I remember growing up as a kid, Phoenix doing some eminent domain stuff. And Phoenix probably does it. It probably happens a lot more than we know. I mean, El Mirage isn't the only city in the world doing this. It happens a lot. But I remember Phoenix doing it because we wanted to build, it was then America West Arena. It's now U.S. Airways Center.
Yes.
They wanted to get a whole bunch of houses downtown. And I remember people getting interviewed on the news saying, well, they offered me $22,000 for my house. You know?
Yes.
But the point of all of it is, the big story isn't that, wow, somebody's trying to steal a house or whatever. It's that eminent domain is happening all over the place, and somebody's taking a stand. You were the lone no vote on the council that day, right?
That is absolutely correct.
Everybody-
And I am still the lone voice against eminent domain.
And you've been the lone vote on a few other things from what I hear.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I seem to buck the system a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, I'm opposed to raising property taxes without a just reason to raise a property tax, not because we look at our books and we say we need certain items. I mean, we're raising property. We had raised property taxes at the same time we put a $100,000 digital billboard in a park. And I'm thinking to myself, why aren't we managing our money a little better? I mean,
Right.
do we need that $100,000 billboard? If we did, let's pay for it.
$100,000 seriously for a billboard. Huh?
Yes. Yeah, beautiful,
Digital billboard.
beautiful digital billboard.
Okay.
And when I asked why we have this beautiful digital billboard, is so we could tell everybody what's going on.
So it's a
okay.
glorified city marquee.
It is. It is. And
It was only $100,000.
It's only $100,000. They want another one, but we'll see where that one goes. Yeah, those are the ridiculous little things, you know, that we look at, and I can't justify raising a property tax when we have these nice little things that they want to put up, but we can't afford it, evidently. So we have to raise taxes to do these other things. Remodel City Hall. I mean, City Hall's been remodeled quite a few times since we've taken office. If we're minding our money and we need City Hall remodeled, well, let's do it within our budget. Let's not raise taxes so we have more money to spend on this. And then they're just going to talk about property taxes, and they're going to say, well, you know, we all agree that property tax is going to public safety. And that's really cool. It does go to public safety. But what that also does, it frees the general fund up to spend on other things. So we don't have to use general fund money to pay for fire and police as much because property taxes are paying for that. So that means we freed the coffers up to do other wonderful things.
Right.
So when they tell the public that we're raising property taxes, but it's going to public safety, it's just a sleight of hand. What we're really doing is we're raising property taxes to put the money into public safety, but that's freeing that money that we would normally spend in public safety up that we could spend somewhere else.
So they're telling you they got a reason for it, but essentially they're going to put it where they want it.
Absolutely.
I want to get back to, the eminent domain thing, because I remember there was one thing that I wanted to ask you about on that. Actually, it's something that you told me about. I wanted to talk about this email, if
Yes.
that's okay.
Sure.
You were the one lone voice, like we already said, that said, no, I'm not going to let you just tell these people we're taking your house whether you like it or not. You want them to negotiate and get a fair price and get what they think their house is worth. What happened after that?
I got an email from the city manager the day after, and his kind of a ranting email, and he basically wondered how I could call myself conservative if I'm willing to spend more money to take somebody's property than what we could get it for. And that's what the email in short was saying. He said a lot more. It was really a kind of a distasteful email that he sent me. But the basics were, how dare I go against everybody and using eminent domain? I don't understand. It's in our Constitution. He referenced the Arizona statutes.
Right.
So these are our tools to take your property.
His idea of conservatism is eminent domain for as cheap as we could possibly go.
Correct. That's exactly what his is. Yes.
Instead of conservatism actually being we own property and we should stand up for property rights.
Absolutely. He doesn't really understand what the word conservative means.
There's a lot of people that don't understand what the word conservative means.
Yes.
You know, we have a whole lot of so-called conservatives at the federal level that are kind of confusing the word. My friends and I at Three-Headed Eagle have talked a lot about that. But I wanted to tell me a little bit. You were telling me earlier about a couple of kind of how the council's been working and some of the things that you did right after you got in. And I found it really interesting as kind of, like I told you before, a microcosm of the federal government. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, we ran, there was a majority of seats open on council. So we ran as what we called the A-team. There was myself and 3 other members running for council and the mayor.
Were you Mr. T on the A-team?
You know, I have no idea. And I had run in 2008. So when I came up with this group, they invited me into the group because I had a little bit of knowledge of what the election process was about. And I just barely lost in 2008, becoming a city councilman then. So we ran on a platform of being conservative, being mindful of the taxpayer dollar, being mindful of what El Mirage is about, the small, quaint community that we love. You know, and that's why we moved there. My wife and I and the kids, we moved there because it was a beautiful community that my kids could grow up in, and it wasn't going to cost us an arm and a leg to live there. Matter of fact, we had no property tax at that time. In 2000, El Mirage had no property tax.
Wow.
But that changed as the city was growing. The hunger for money came in. Property taxes then were voted down the first time. They persisted on the next election to get a property tax in, and it won. I mean, it's really needed. I mean, property tax pays for many things, including your public safety. Mm-hmm. That's when I figured it was time to get involved with the local government. So I volunteered, and I became part of the El Mirage. I can't remember what advisory committee for the police department, where we kind of were the overseers of police action and made sure that the citizens were represented fairly amongst the police department, and a few other things I volunteered with in El Mirage, along with being the HOA president of the homeowners that I'm in.
Right.
So I felt it was important to give into the community what I need to do to make the community a better place for all of us.
Right. So you got into city council.
Yes.
And then you told me almost right away there was...
I forgot that. The most important part. I mean, we ran on the platform of saving money and keeping expenses low. And I had already looked at the books as we were running, and the budget looked horrible. But I also found a lot of little pocket holes of money that made it come back together, that we weren't as broke as everybody was saying we were. This council chose not to change that direction. They continued to say that we were in fiscal dire straits. And within 2 weeks after raising our hands and taking the oath of office, the mayor and the city manager got hold of John Nelson, who was our senator of our district at the time, and had John Nelson sponsor a bill to give us the authority to raise a secondary tax for basically a whatever, because we're broke. We need to raise money quickly.
When you really weren't broke.
When we really weren't broke. Now, that was when I first felt the wrath of evil, because I took a stand against the council at that time, finally, and I became very unliked. Matter of fact, the fire and police department fire department was standing up in city council meeting, calling me names, telling me how horrible I am and how I don't have the interests of the city in to get this tax approved, and I was the no vote on moving forward with that. Unfortunately, the bill passed, and I continued my fight all the way to the day it came to council to approve the use of that secondary tax, because they fought hard to get it. And I don't know what happened, but I do know that we had the community show up, and the community wrote letters and emails to City Hall telling them how this isn't right. And that night, even though that there was a statement in there to suggested to approve this, we we tabled the item. So that night it didn't work. That was my first victory. Now, it was a brutal victory on my part because there was a lot of bloodshed on my part. But
Just to
but I
clarify,
won.
that's proverbial bloodshed.
Proverbial bloodshed. Absolutely, absolutely. It was hard to take a stand against the other 6.
Sure.
And it's a difficult thing that I think elected officials have to do. If you have that value set and you believe in yourself that this is the wrong thing, then it's the wrong thing, and you have to take your stand against it. So we won. It got tabled, and it never came up again. So that was the first real wonderful victory. But to not lose focus of where we went from a conservative group of people that said we're going to take care of the people to trying to impose a tax weeks after we took office.
Literally weeks after.
Literally weeks. We went down to the House and to the Senate to have a bill passed to allow us to exercise an authority of a secondary tax that's never been done anywhere else. So this was a first.
So this is why I say this is an interesting little microcosm of the federal system, because you guys ran on one platform. You went in there, and within just a couple of weeks, it's like, no, wait a minute. What the heck did we elect you guys for? This is the opposite of what we elected you guys for. And you told me even that early on there was a couple of votes that, and we probably don't have time to go into them right now, but there was a couple of votes that you went along with because it was like, well, these are kind of the direction they're going, right?
Oh, absolutely. We took our first, our city manager was my very first mistake. And it wasn't a mistake because of the person. It wasn't a mistake because of anything other than I went along with everybody. And we were all new, and I wanted to show the solidarity of our group. And I know it didn't feel right to go that direction, but I didn't want to come right out of the gate saying, I'm going to go with these guys because it's right. Well, it wasn't right because we kind of did some of these things behind closed doors, and we weren't transparent right from the get-go. And I knew it, I felt it, and it was a mistake. And I wish I had the fortitude to have stood up back in those days and had done something different.
Well, what's interesting about that is that you say right in there, like, oh, I want to stand with the group. We all got elected together, and you look at kind of like the 2010 elections, the midterm elections, where you sent all these guys to Congress, and probably a lot of these freshmen are thinking the same thing. And you got guys like Jeff Flake that say, I want to look united, and they kind of end up under the wing of the John McCains and the Lindsey Grahams, and end up not being the people that they ended up, or that they got voted in to be, or that they wanted to be. And so that's why, but it's good to hear an elected official like you come out and say, you know what? No, I didn't like that vote. I wish I'd gone a different way. And now you are.
Yes.
And you're taking huge stands.
Yes. You're
not liked on the city council, or at least a lot of the things you're doing aren't liked on the city council, but you're being supported by a lot of the city. Is that right? By a lot of citizens.
I have a lot of support from the citizens of El Mirage, and that's because I actually work for them. You know, you call me, you email me, you live in El Mirage, you have my open attention, and I will do my best to work in that direction that you want me to go. Of course, we can't always make everything work for everybody. Unfortunately, it just doesn't happen that way. But I work for the people in El Mirage, and I will do my best to make sure that El Mirage is the better place for all of us, because that is who's coming to me. I'm not the one saying, I need this road. They're coming. I'm jammed up in traffic. We need to take care of this. Why can't we get a stoplight up at this intersection? It's dangerous. Well, I'm going to bring those to the attention of staff, whose staff works for council, at least they used to, and we're going to make these corrections the best we can in the best affordable way we can do it to still provide the amenities and the safety that we need for our citizens. Right. Again, we work for the people. I was told by the mayor and the city manager, and it was crazy. It's in a council meeting. We know what is needed for the city more than the citizens know what they need.
We know better than the people do.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
I seem to recall hearing that by a few other progressives back in the 1913s and 1920s and 30s. It's a highly progressive idea that, because we got elected, we know better than the people do. Well, Jim, thank you for being with me today. Thank you for your service in the Air Force. How long was it? 36 years?
36 years.
36 years. Thank you so much for your service. Thank you for your service and for taking a stand on the city council.
Well, thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening to the Jeromy+One show, and hopefully, like I say, we'll be having this weekly. But if this show is not weekly, you can catch our Three-Headed Eagle weekly podcast. Comes out every Saturday, and our almost daily content now coming out on threeheadedeagle.com with blogs and videos. Thanks a lot. Have a good one. Good one. Good one. Good one.